Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dan Bailey, Smothered and Covered Sports. Just want to take a minute before we start our next recording to say thank you to everybody that reached out about my mother's health and our family's battle with her cancer. It's continuing to be a fight, but your positivity and prayers are very welcome to all of us, and we are very grateful. My entire family is grateful, and we'll continue to update in this type of setting if you're interested. I know that somebody somewhere within your family's fought this horrible disease, and it's going to be a continued effort for all of us to continue to fight it. So, again, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and from all of my family for embracing our fight, and we're going to continue to do it and unify in it, and continue to give our glory to God and faith in His plan. All right, we're going to get it going. Good afternoon, everybody. It's been a long time. This is Smothered and Covered Sports. I'm Dan Bailey. My fine fellow championship winning friend over there is Frank Garcia. We're sponsored by Carolina Seal, Tap and Vine, and Stroll Magazine. It's been a long time, Frank. I've had a lot going on. Man, how have you been?
I've been doing great, buddy. Thanks for asking. It's been way too long, and I know that we've all had some challenges and the holiday seasons. And before we get going any further, I want to send my prayers out to your mom,
Thank you.
your family, for the struggles that you guys are having right now. I know you mentioned on Facebook the other day and kind of what's been going on. So before we got any further, I just wanted to tell you I'm really thinking about you and your family and this holiday season.
Oh man, I appreciate that. Yeah, we're still in the discovery phase of what's really going on with her, and she's in and out of the hospital. So that's the prayers from you and everybody have been very welcome. So thank you very much, Frank.
Other than that, Dan, it's been way too long, and I just got back from Florida and enjoyed a back-to-back national championship. We go every year in golf. We qualified here at the Carolina chapters, and we were the defending national champs. And last year it was in Palm Springs, and we had an opportunity to go defend this year in Florida, just outside of Orlando, at Mission Inn. And I'll tell you, that's where Charlie Woods just won his
Oh,
first
nice.
championship, and it's a great golf course, great community. But we were able to, hold on. Had a playoff at the very end, and some of my great memories are going to be of that tournament with some of my good friends, all contributing. I've been fortunate enough to win national championships and state championships, and it's very rare that you get to do that. But it's rarer in your 60s when you're able to do that. And I had a good friend, Uncle Kevin, that went out there and made the last winning putt. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was just a lot of fun, Dan, and that's what sports is about: making memories, people you care about, and that's the one thing that I'll be able to take away. One of the many things I'll be able to take away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I highly encourage people to follow you on social media. You do a great job of posting a lot of that stuff, and I know you've got some golf sponsorships for you individually through Bad Birdie and the Bag Tour, etc. And I mean, you stay very active in golf. And I mean, again, if anybody's looking for him, it's Frank Garcia on Facebook. And what's your Instagram?
Frank Garcia 65 is pretty easy.
Yeah,
Same thing would be on Facebook. But yeah, I mean that the golf is still going to be a big part. But thankfully, for me, I'm getting back into the restaurants, and we're opening up a new one in Quail Hollow here, probably within the next week or so. We got the keys today to be able to go in there and clean up, and we're looking forward to launching very soon, and with a little soft launch. And we're gonna have some great food. We're gonna have good environment. We're gonna have excellent service, and hopefully a lot of people to enjoy that with.
man, that's awesome. I'm really excited for you and what that's going to mean. I mean, not just for I think for the show, it's going to be great, obviously, and selfishly to do some remotes from there and have some of that food because I'm a huge fan of Tap and Vine. I think their food's amazing and
You're a
price point
connoisseur.
just right, huh?
You're a wing connoisseur.
I mean, if I stood up, you'd have got everything everybody would understand. I'm a all things connoisseur when it comes to what goes in my belly. But I do really, really enjoy the food there. And I do really think that, we had some conversations earlier on about how you're looking at doing a brunch menu there because of where it's located. And there's a lot of churches around that Quail Hollow, and there's not a lot of options for lunch. So if anybody's listening, please go by there for brunch, because I'm telling you, it'll be worth it. The food that these guys have put out is all custom, and it's there's always like chef specials. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, if Frank is part of that food design, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I will guarantee that the food there will be very good.
Thank you very much, Dan. And yeah, we're looking forward to that. And lots happened since the last podcast we've done. So
let's talk about this. Let's talk about the hottest topic in sports right now. And look, again, if no one's following us on social media, I mean, we've been back and forth publicly about this, just around the eruption of the college football and their selections. And I've made it very public to some naysayers and some people who tried to talk junk to me out there. I am a Bama homer. I am. I own that. I have been since day one. I have been since Frank's been calling Jalen Jalen Millsap. We can't get it right, and I've been championing their effort the entire time. I think, Frank, that the committee got it right. We got the best 4 teams. The criteria is not the most deserving teams. The criteria is putting the best 4 teams in, and we've got the best 4 teams.
Well, I don't know if we have the best 4 teams, but I do think we have the most deserving best 4 teams. Because talking about the best teams, Georgia needs to be in there, and they're not. So Georgia's the second best team in the country right now, in my opinion, and then followed by Michigan, and probably it would either be Ohio State or Washington, in that order. Washington would be the 4th or 5th. But, with where they're stacked right now and the current state of each team, Florida State isn't in the conversation. And I think that's been the big, pushback where they're even talking about Ron DeSantis suing the committee or giving money, $1 million to sue the committee. Which
Frank, I saw I don't know if it's real, but I saw the text of it, the image of the paper where Ron DeSantis really is going to sue the college football.
Well, he's not suing, but he's putting in the pot $1 million so that they have at their disposal to use for the suit. And I understand, people are upset. Dan, I was at the airport when the actual committee came out with the vote on Sunday, and Florida State was playing here in Charlotte, and I was flying to Orlando. And I felt like I knew what the polls were going to say, and they're exactly what they said. It was going to be Michigan number 1, Washington number 2, followed by Texas, and then I felt like Alabama would have been the 4th best team. And there's a lot of guys that do a lot of good podcasts around the country, and there's a lot of guys that know their football. And I think the one thing that one of the guys said was, if you're Michigan right now, who is the team you least want to play?
That's right.
And that would give you the best argument for who should be number 4. And it's absolutely Alabama. I've been hard on Jalen Milroe all year, and rightfully so for the first part of it. I will say this, however, since he's learned his identity, and since he's started to understand what he does well, and is playing within the concepts of the team, and they have decided, and they have figured out how to use them as well. Yeah. Alabama, and I said it all along, Alabama has the best people, the best positions, the best group of players in the entire country, minus their quarterback. I can't say that anymore because he's learned how to play that position within the scheme of which they're trying to run. And they're a very, very dangerous team. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win a national championship. But Florida State has a legitimate argument. They have a right to be upset. And I understand why they're upset, because if I was on that fan base, what else can we do? There's circumstances that happen, and it's supposed to be the best team, and there's never it's the first time in history. So anytime there's a precedent set like this, it's going to upset some people. And when you go undefeated in a Power 5 conference, you should have an opportunity to play, and that's the reason why they're going to go to 12 teams. But they didn't get in this year, and Dan, I kind of equate it to, we've had the rebuttals back and forth on Facebook and on our pages that, there's a lot of pieces in a football team, and it should be more about the team. There's no I in team, and all the cliches that we use. But there's also a queen in chess, and there's a lot of pieces in chess. And when you're playing chess, if you're queen, if you're not starting with that piece, you're not going to be as powerful as you do if you had it, and you're not going to beat like opponents.
That's right.
And that's why I equate to Florida State too. They have lost their queen, and they are playing teams that have their full arsenal and that are playing well and have a lot of momentum. Florida State isn't even a top 10 team in the country without that piece. So I understand their gripe, their complaint, but go cry me a river, because life isn't always fair, and sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
That's right. And look, I hate to regurgitate somebody else's statement, but there was some I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Stephen A. Smith or Kirk Herbstreit, but there was a very wise statement, right? And look, this is really one of the first years since we've had the college football playoffs that there's been this much drama and balance in the playoff system, period. So
there's been other times when Alabama has not even played in a conference championship and found a way in. So there's been incidences with the best team, and Alabama has usually been the brunt of that. And that's why there's so much disdain for them, because they've been the best team. So this is as, it's a precedent. I don't know if it's the most unpopular decision.
Yeah, I understand that. But what really comes to mind now, because it's the first time that there's been 5 strong conference champions, very strong Power 5 conference champions. And it shows the flaw in the system, because you have a 4-team playoff in a Power 5 conference, right? Now, I never thought about it that way, because there was always a weak link somewhere. I mean, the Pac-12 has been a few times, not to throw digs at you in Washington, but
you're right, absolutely right to say that.
But
here's my rebuttal to that, Dan. To whoever thinks they're smarter than anybody else, like Stephen A. Smith, or their opinion's the only one that matters. My rebuttal to that would be is that the SEC, whether you like it or not, and I'm not an SEC fan, but I respect the hell out of them, because they're the best conference in college football, period. And they've won 6 or 7 of the last 8 championships, and there's no arguing that. There's zero arguments in the fact that they have won the national championship 7 out of 8 times. And it's been different teams. It's not just one team dominating. You've had teams and all around. You've had Bama, you've had Georgia twice, you've had Bama a couple of times, you've had LSU. You've had multiple teams win this, and you can't say that about any other conference. Name me another in the last 10 years that's done that. Clemson's the only other team that's a repeat. Other than that, Ohio State has been there, but they haven't won it. They won it once, but other than that, I mean, nobody else can even say that they've won a national championship multiple times. Clemson would be one in the ACC, but they're down this year, and Florida State isn't Clemson. They don't have Deshaun Watson. Clemson had everything they had to do with some great players to beat those Alabama teams, and that LSU team with Joe Burrow and Chase, right? All the guys that they had, Chase Young, and all the teams, and Ohio State. You make the same argument. I mean, these teams are loaded, and Florida State's good.
Yeah,
and they don't have the queen of their chessboard.
That's right. And look, and here's the part 2 to it all. And I agree with everything you just said. But part 2 on with the system being, it's flawed, is because it's still an opinion, Frank. All of it is still an opinion. You got a committee of people who have opinions or set by parameters, and it's still a judgment call.
Okay, right? Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
A lot of people giving an opinion.
Yeah.
Right. But how many people are experts at giving those opinions? You and I, I would classify myself as an expert opinion giver, because I've played the sport, I coach the sport, I follow the sport. Yeah. Right? I've seen the highest of the high, I've seen the lowest of the low. It's like if I'm a doctor and I'm giving an opinion on surgery, you're going to listen, versus a guy that just is going 9 to 5 doing something else. These are expert opinions. They're not just opinions. And the experts decided that these are the 4 best teams, 4 best deserving teams in college football, not just from the eye test, but also have a great resume, right? And I think sometimes the SEC, believe it or not, even gets undervalued with some of the teams that they play. because any team in that conference, almost any team, I don't think Vanderbilt would qualify as this, but almost any team in that conference has the ability to beat anybody in that conference every single week they play.
Yeah.
There's not a bigger gauntlet in college football that you run than playing in the SEC, period.
That's right. And the naysayers have said that this is a down year for the SEC, which is ludicrous. I mean, the SEC was stacked this year, and people are accusing it of being down. I mean, Ole Miss could beat any team in the ACC. LSU definitely could beat any team in the SEC. I know they lost to Florida State early in the season, but LSU took a little while to get going this year. Period. The
LSU quarterback when they beat Florida State early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Florida State quarterback when they beat LSU early in the season. They had a full arsenal. They don't have that anymore. We need to stop looking at that and saying that that's the same team. It's not.
That's right.
They've lost a key piece to that team, and that factors into this game. We saw what they did here in Charlotte, Dan. We saw it with our own two eyes. It was awful. It was. Louisville, Florida State was awful. And you know what? That affected the opinions of those experts when they watched that game. That team wouldn't beat the 8th team in the SEC currently the way they're playing against Louisville. They can't score. They wouldn't have scored against Alabama. They wouldn't have scored against Washington. They wouldn't have scored against Georgia. They wouldn't have scored against Michigan. They won't score against Texas. They're not going to score unless the other team turns it over. And on top of that, the other teams have pretty good offenses. So these aren't normal. This isn't Louisville. And everybody's going to say, well, Louisville had the 16th best offense in the country. Cry me a river. That's garbage. They played in the crappy ACC.
That's right.
Who was terrible this year. The ACC was the worst conference in college football this year. I don't care what. I've seen all these teams. You got North Carolina, you got Duke, you got Clemson, who was down, you got Boston College. I mean, these teams are terrible, Dan.
Yeah, Miami was terrible this year.
Miami was not as what they have been in years past, and they could be. So to sit there and tell me Louisville is your representative on one side, and then against an undefeated Florida State, you get no credibility for that. You played worst conference and the worst Power 5 conference in college football. The Pac-12 had 4 or 5 more teams better that would have beat any one of those Florida State team the way they're currently constructed. You can say the same thing about the Big 10 or the Big 12. And I would guarantee that would be the case in the SEC. So the Florida State fans don't want to hear that, Dan, but that's the truth. And they know it, because I asked a guy that was a Florida State fan, and I said, be honest with me. Take your bias out of this. Take your heart out of this. Who are the 4 best teams? Is Florida State in there right now, currently constructed? And he couldn't say no.
That's right. And look, let's just say this one more time. And I think we posted this too. I know we posted it. We both did. I got it from you. I mean, if at the end of the day, and Michigan had their choice of who they could play, the last team they would choose is Alabama or Georgia. They would love to play Florida State. This question got posed. I'm going to restate it for everybody that's listening now. Well, let's say Michigan could choose, between Alabama and Georgia. Frank, who would you pick between Alabama and Georgia to play? I mean, if those are your options, to your point, what did you say earlier? Neither. I don't want to play either of them.
Well, I think I made the same point you're making earlier in the broadcast with with the guy that does the podcast. His name's escaping me right now. He's a smart guy. He played the game. He has a great podcast. He's super successful at his podcast because he spits facts. He spits the truth. People don't always like to hear the truth, and everybody in these days wants a medal. It's not fair. Life isn't fair, Dan. Life is. Let me break it to you, people. Out life isn't fair. You get kicked sometimes. You play great. You don't win. You don't get the trophy. You don't get an opportunity. Whether you deserve to or not, you know what you say? Better luck next year. Imagine 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when they didn't have this and there was teams that were deserving. Think if you're Penn State right now, going back to 1995, and you went undefeated and you lost to a Nebraska team. You did everything you were supposed to. You had 4 first rounders on your team with a number 3 pick overall in Kerry Collins. and you didn't win a national championship.
Yeah.
You think that was fair? They weren't undefeated.
Or
Are
what
they going to sue? No. You know what? Sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles, and life isn't fair. You celebrate a great season. You pat the kids on the back, and you say, you know what? We'll get them next year. Or if you're not, we did everything you could in your power to go out there and give it your all. There's nothing to be disappointed with.
Well, look, there's a lot of great that we could talk hours and hours about that. And we're working on a very special guest next week. One of my very close friends was on the committee. I'm going to leave that surprise for the future, but was in the room. And when we reconvene next week, we're going to hopefully have him on for a little while via phone, and get some more perspective on the whole conversation. But we haven't talked in a long time. And here's the other big thing that's going on, man. Frank, you played for the Panthers. You played with Frank Reich. He just got fired. Where are you with that? I mean, do you think it was the right move at this time? I know there's a lot of things to say here, but let's pretend that it just happened yesterday. What was your first reaction to where you are now with how you're looking at the dismissal of Frank Reich and the moves we're making after?
All guy. That's exactly what I thought. There's so much turmoil underneath the surface that we're not seeing. With owners making decisions, owners critiquing coaches, owners wanting to know or think they know more about technique than the guys that are out there teaching every single day and having input and impact on that. I've read things from or talked to guys that I'm familiar with and very close with around that organization and in that organization that have told me about, how there's the ownership overstepping of Bryce Young. He's not taking enough drops. When you're telling the head coach, Frank Reich, who played the position, how to coach that position, and you're critiquing him, that comes across as it's overstepping boundaries, in my opinion. You're the owner. You can do whatever you want, but you're not going to want you guys are going to want to work for a guy that's micromanaging you. If you're a guy that you get paid to do this job, you're dealing with type A individuals and owners and coaches, just like, the ownership group. So if you're out there critiquing these players and giving them advice on, what to do and how to do it, there's going to be some disconnect and you're undermining their value as leaders because now the players are seeing that. It's like two parents fighting, in front of the kids.
Hey, let's be clear. We know I've been a CEO of a company. I'm a president of another right now. And look, that's the truth for any organization of any kind. You don't do or behave like that as an executive or an owner. You don't do it.
Organization, relationships, or households.
That's right.
You don't fight in front of the kids as parents. I mean, you go in the back room, you settle things, and you come out unified. And if you can't, then you need to make a change. And that's not what's happening, right now over there. So when I saw Frank Reich that he got let go, I knew it was a fall guy. There was butting of heads, and everybody thinks that Steve Wilkes should be the head coach, and we should have never let him go. It's not going to matter, guys. It just doesn't matter when you have the pieces that the Panthers have. They're playing with a bunch of pawns, right? And Webster at quarterback. Sorry. He's a small, undersized guy that's not great at anything. He needs pieces around him.
Some of our younger audience is going to have to look up who Webster is.
Look at Gary Coleman, too. He's another or tattoo. You can look at all three of those and figure out who I'm talking about. That's our right. He's the smallest quarterback in NFL history, and he doesn't have any pieces around him. I put something else out there on Facebook this last couple of weeks, Dan, and I was talking about making plays down the field versus man coverage.
Yeah,
and it all stems from that. If you can't get open one-on-one in the NFL, you're going to lose a lot of games. It's hard enough to get open, in zones and things that the teams run. But when you're playing one-on-one, that means you're stacking the box and putting 8 in there. You're not going to have a running game. So everything becomes a little bit tighter, a little bit harder to operate within. You can run creative blitzes when you're doing that and lock up on guys. It's hard to execute as an offense when everything is copacetic and you have a lot of synergy. And, right now, the Panthers don't have any of that because they can't beat one-on-one coverage.
So what do you think the best? I mean, let me pause for 1 second and be clear. I'm one of the guys too that wishes we would have kept Steve Wilkes, and who knows what that would have turned into for the future.
Zero, nothing.
Yeah, I mean we'll never know, unfortunately.
Hire the guy that's making groceries or the people that's coaching the coaches, which is the owner, until he makes the decision to step back. Nothing's going to change. So it really doesn't matter who the coach is. You can go get Vince Lombardi out of the grave and come bring him here. Parcells, whoever else you want to bring in here. You want to go get Bill Belichick and think that's going to change the chicken salad? Nope, still chicken shit. So that's what you got right now with the Panthers. They got coaches trying to make chicken salad out of a bunch of chicken shit.
So what's the right next step then, in your opinion? Like, what is there a right hire out there for this team?
Yeah, and I know several guys that are very deserving. The question is going to be: are they going to be able to do their job under an owner that's smarter than everybody else when it comes to their job, and is to overstep their bounds and make decisions that they're going to hold you accountable for, right? So if you're making these decisions and you're holding me accountable, it's going to be tough to find a really good person that's going to want to work for that you're going to keep very long. So, I think that's the biggest issue right now. It starts at the top, as it always does, when you're failing or having lack of success, and then it trickles down. So, but before we figure out who the head is going to hire the head coach, we got to get the right GM in there. You got to build the base and then work your way up to the top, or else you're going to have a house of crumbling clay. And when it rains, it's going to just wipe it out. So you got to build a structure from the ground up, and you got to have the sticks and mortar, and get a good foundation. And until that happens, it really doesn't matter who the head coach is going to be.
Well, there's a lot of names already flying. I'm sure you see the message boards and all that stuff. And I'll tell you who. There's a name that attracts me. It attracted me last year. It was a name that I really thought, from my fan perspective, and just a personality that could go toe to toe with David Tepper. I personally would love to see Jim Harbaugh here. I think that he's the one personality that could tell David Tepper, hey man, know your role, shut your mouth, go up there and sign checks, and I'm going to sit down here and win football teams. I'm going to get rid of Mighty Mouse probably, or find a way to work around him. And, he can build a team from the trenches out. I know that's his philosophy.
How do we know that Frank Reich didn't do that?
I don't.
Right.
I don't.
I'm
just saying, like, for
and guess what happened with Frank Reich?
Yeah.
So
I read another thing where it said that there was a very a lot of backstabbing within the organization, and people were contacting the owner during the games and saying, well, this is what I think Frank Reich's doing wrong. And shame on David Tepper for even listening to those guys and not trusting his guy to be a coach, right? And he may have tried to step up to him, but I just see from from the outside looking in that Harbaugh is the kind of guy that demands that role. But I mean,
all that is to me is noise and gossip. I don't usually try to get into that and start rumors and gossip and things like that. It's just not who I am.
Yeah.
If I've heard something, it's from a credible source that I know within the organization that's going to be factual, and it's going to come from basically the horse's mouth. So, the things that I'm telling you are going on there. And that's what's taking place in that organization right now. Whether fans are calling in and giving him their 2 cents, or somebody he trusts, that's an evaluator of talent is giving him his 2 cents. It ultimately comes down to, leadership comes in diversifying and disbursement of talent and figuring out where your best talent is and how to utilize that. And then getting the guy to finding the right guy that you're going to trust to let them do their job, or else they're not a leader. You have the wrong person. If I have to tell you how to do your job, then I have the wrong person doing that job.
100%. Well, look, I think we're about out of time, man. I wanted, before we part ways, and again, like, man, it's so great to hang out and do this again. We've had life got in the way of some stuff, and family comes first. We both believe that heavily. Where I'm lucky enough to have a friend like you who shares his friends and family with us, and our kids are getting to play with each other and all that kind of stuff. We haven't even had a chance to do that lately.
You have a friend in me.
That's right.
But you have a friend in me.
Oh God, please stop saying.
The only thing I was stuck at in school was choir. I was never good at the choir, so
you just showed that, my friend. So I'm very excited to announce, Frank and I both are, that we're going to be doing this live and in person at Carolina Steel every Monday for the foreseeable future. And we would love for you, anybody to come out, and some of you hecklers online, if you want to come stand toe to toe with the big men, you come on. Come talk to us. Come say hello. Come throw your shady opinions towards the.
Have a cold beer and some chicken wings.
That's right, and enjoy it. Enjoy the atmosphere, and it's going to be fun to get me and Frank face to face. And man, it's exciting. It's exciting. We're doing it. We're probably going to do some from Frank's Tap and Vine once that gets going. But Carolina Steel is a great atmosphere. It's a great lunch place, and we look forward to our next time. Until then, Frank, the Mad Mex, hats off.
Adios.